Good evening, members. Welcome to this evening's Joint Consultation Board, the 14th of December 2021. There's no members of the public here. We have a few extra people here that are welcome as well. You'll meet them as time goes on. Okay. The first item on the fire procedure first is if the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices via the stairs opposite the lifts in the foyer. Please do not use the lift. Assemble in Hawley Square on the green, and officers will assist you and advise when it is deemed safe to return to the chamber. Could everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are switched to silent and they are not used to make or receive calls in the chamber whilst this meeting is in progress. I would advise that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their image captured. I urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, particularly if there are children present. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? Okay, I'll skip the next part. Does any member wish to speak under 20.1? No. Okay. Right, apologies for absence in agenda item 1. We have Cornford, who is actually a new member, Ferrance, Hart, Game and Yates and Lewis. Cornford is a council coordinator, Westgate Town Councillor, but she's sent her apologies this evening. We have a councillor Quittington, who's also a new member of Minster Parish World Council, but he isn't here at the moment. So, right. Are there any other apologies? It seems no. Okay. Right, thank you. Agenda item 2: declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Okay, thank you. Minutes of agenda item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Do members agree that the minutes of the Joint Transportation Board meeting held on the 16th of September 2021 be approved and signed as a correct record? Thank you. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you. And can I have a seconder, please? Do all members agree? Thank you. Right, agenda item 4 is a Highways Works Programme 2021-22 and 2022-23. I hope that you've all looked at your agenda items and gone through them, because we do not have no presentation from Paul this evening, unfortunately. So can I ask, do any members have any questions or comments on the report? If you do, James will take down your questions and they will be sent to whichever officer they are relevant. So do members have any questions, please, on agenda item 4, Highway Works Programme? No. No members? No? Right. So this report is for information. Please can members note the report. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is the local winter service plan. Once again, do members have any questions or comments on the report? No comments? No? Thank you. The report is for information. Please can members note the report. Agenda item 6 is the active travel plan A28 Canterbury Road. I call upon Parish Councillor Blankley, who was asked to speak on behalf of Burgington Parish Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Came to me rather quickly. Thank you. I've been asked by the Parish Council to come along to express our views about the plan for the active travel route. I think it's fair to say, first off, that the Parish Council recognises the benefits of cycling, how it can benefit physical and mental health, and how it can also contribute to improvements in the environment, where it allows people to take short journeys by bicycle rather than by motor car or by some other means that's potentially damaging or causing congestion. However, we feel that the proposals for this particular cycle route are not well thought through and potentially offer a risk to health and the environment. There's three grounds really on which we take this view. The first is around the evidence base. We've not seen any evidence to underpin the rationale for this particular route. If it's to substitute short car journeys for cycling, then the evidence presumably is there. We know that the Ursuline School and King Ethelbert's are both major destinations for young people who potentially could cycle, but we don't know how many of those walk, how many come by public transport, how many are potential cyclists and therefore potential users of the cycle path itself. So the absence of any evidence to us suggests that this perhaps isn't an evidence-based initiative. The second and equally important is around the impacts of the proposed changes. Just to remind you, the outcome of the proposal would be that the current two-lane dual carriageway would become a two-lane single carriageway route, and instead of being a 40-mile-an-hour limit, would be 30. Now, it has been said that in some parts of the route, it does become a single lane where there's cars parked along by Ursuline and King Ethelbert for quite frequently, but largely it is a dual carriageway with two carriageways. The impact of that on general traffic flows would we don't understand what that might be because we don't believe the analysis has been done. But more importantly, there are 2,000 houses proposed to be built in Westgate and 1,600 in Birchington. And up to now, the planning for those developments and the associated relief road, the inner circuit, has been based on the idea that the route between Birchington and Margate would be as it is now. So the impact of the potential of the proposed changes on those assumptions that underlie those developments are not understood, and we believe they probably haven't even been looked at. So there are some big issues there. When we come to the design of the route itself, we believe that it risks putting cyclists and pedestrians in conflict in certain areas, and it also, because it doesn't physically segregate them on footpaths, and also because if it were children who were using their bicycles more to go to school, they've still got to cross the dual carriageway, and it potentially puts them in conflict with the traffic as well. The guidance that was issued in 2020 by the government around cycle routes, it is only guidance, it's not mandatory, but in the forward to that, the minister at the time did say that too much cycling infrastructure is substandard, providing little protection from motorised traffic and giving up the very places it is most needed. Some is actually worse than nothing because it entices novice cyclists with the promise of protection, then abandons them at the most important place. Poor cycling infrastructure discourages cycling and wastes public money. I think our understanding of this proposal at the moment suggests that that paragraph would perhaps capture the views of Birchington Parish Council as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Do members have any questions?
Thanks, Chairman. It's not a question as such, but I asked for this to be put on the agenda because I know there's been a consultation, and I suspect that most of the county, certainly the county councillors, put their comments on that consultation. But I thought it was imperative that the Joint Transportation Board had a view, whether it was for or against. I thought it should certainly come for members to discuss. I suspect that the view is fairly mutual for many from what I've seen, and certainly from people that I've spoken to. But I thank Councillor Blankley for his comments. I think he's being generous. Money is offered for active travel, and it has long been the tradition that if there's money to be had, you grab it, even if what you do with it isn't quite certain or not even possibly a good idea. If people want to cycle, albeit not directly to the schools, but there is a perfectly adequate active travel plan, and it's called the Esplanade, that goes all the way along from Birchington to Westbrook. So, and it's only a few yards north of the one that they're planning. Now, I travel the dual carriageway quite a bit. It already takes me 20 minutes to get from Broadstairs out of Thanet. Because usually it's when it's peak times and it's single lane. And it's so nice coming back because it's not single lane then, because I usually come back when it's out of peak hours. But this is the major road into Margate and Broadstairs. And I think that to start suggesting that it should be narrowed with an active travel, well, with a cycle path, whilst I applaud the attempt to make people cycle more, I think that this is money wasted. My opinion is that it's not going to resolve any issues. I think that you will have a continuous single lane there, whereas at the moment it's only at peak times. And then for the rest of the day it's pretty good. So I think personally that this is a waste of that money. I think it's a waste of government money on a project that fails on in many ways, and I would suggest that it's flavour of the month. My recommendation is that we do not recommend this as a plan that should be put in place, but that is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Next one on my list is Councillor Fellows, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm a bit disappointed there's no one from KCC here this evening, because I think there's a couple of questions I'd like to ask and something I'd like to say, because you know, I don't know where they're coming up with these harebrained ideas, to be honest with you. I mean, we've had two failed projects in Thanet already, in Westgate and indeed in your Broadstairs. So my biggest concern as a ward councillor in Birchington is the closure of Epple Road. I think we've already got a closure of traffic coming out of Domneva onto Canterbury Road. So anybody living on that side of the road who wants to come out to get towards London is going to head right through our village of Birchington. It's already speed restricted anyway, 20 mile an hour and humps and whatever. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I think there's no way that we can support it. Not in a million years. That's all I want to say. I think, Nick, thank you for your analysis. I think you've done some good work on behalf of Birchington Parish Council. So yeah, I won't be supporting it. I can't support it. I think we should, strongly put some sort of campaign against it. Personally, I don't know who at KCC came up with the idea. I don't know.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wright is my next on my list, please.
Thank you, Chair. I actually live on the Canterbury Road. I've actually, since we had a briefing, and it's quite well documented that my thoughts were unnecessary, ill-conceived and dangerous. There's not one word about HGVs. At peak times during the day, we have HGVs, coaches and 4 bus routes. Now, there's no mention of the emergency services. And 2 weeks ago, I was walking to the post box and a fire engine came along. The cars actually come up onto the pavement. So my fear is that if there's a cycle lane there, what do? Do you hit the cyclist or do you crash into the emergency vehicle? I did ask the person that thought this scheme up, had they actually monitored the bicycles that actually use the Canterbury Road. I've been doing that, and on average I see 4 in the morning. Most of the children walk to school, and I think actually children walking to school is far healthier for them, for their mental health as well, because when you walk to school with your friends, you make friends and you do your homework if you haven't done it. There's all sorts of social integration with those children, which I think, especially this generation now, they've been deprived of in the last couple of years. When you're on a bike, you don't talk to anybody, which isolates you. And there are young gentlemen who think it's good to have 5 people on a bike. So what happens if an ambulance comes along and you have to get out of the way? It's a really bad accident waiting to happen. I won't be supporting this recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Crowe-Brown.
Thank you. Yes, I echo the sentiments of all the comments made by councillors. I was asked by the KCC leader, Roger Goff, what my opinion was, and as a former racing cyclist who used to do about 10,000 miles a year, I said that is not the right route to go into Margate. It should have been along the coast as best as possible. There should have also been engagement with Birchington and Westgate councils before it went out to the public. Yeah, as has been said, Epple Road being shut off. Councillor Cornford contacted me today. What about people alighting from the buses? There's going to be conflict with the cycles crossing that route. So, yeah, I won't support it. Thank you.
Comments and questions will be sent to Wendy Borman, who's the Schemes Programme Manager of East at KCC. So your comments will go, obviously, to this particular person who hopefully will... Oh, beg your pardon.
No, Chair, can I just ask if it's possible, with your permission, that we actually make a recommendation that we do not support this plan? I think we should do more than just comment to an officer, but actually say, is my opinion, if members are agreed.
Okay, it was for information, but I think I'll agree to that. I think that needs to be done, so yes, it will be a recommendation.
It says in the terms of reference we're supposed to make recommendations.
Yeah. Would you like to make
Can I ask the KCC council if they know if there's going to be more scrutiny of it? I know there's a consultation where we all know consultations are fairly ignored anyway, but is there going to be some scrutiny of this, or what's the next stage on this?
Well, Councillor Goff said if there was a lot of negatives in this consultation, it will be pulled, this project, and the money will go back to central government. That's what he told me.
What gets me is we're the Kent County members, and all these plans and decisions go over our heads. We sit here and listen to all the local concerns, and I've always said that KCC, it's like an ivory tower. They don't understand. It's just a rubber stamping. It's dreadful, but...
I'm going to go to Councillor Biggs first.
Yeah, in relation to that, I would say that at scrutiny, we are looking at, and we've raised it at planning, because at planning, the planning committee in KCC is only noted, is only allowed to note the letters that have already been sent, and one of them was for Birchington, a neighbourhood plan, which I disagreed with the comments and asked, whose comments are they, KCC or an officer? And with what authority does that officer then come with those comments, because they've not been passed by anybody else? And in fact, at scrutiny, we will be looking into the comments, the letters that are sent to district councils regarding planning applications, big planning applications, which do not always seem to reflect members' opinions, the councillors' opinions, but in fact reflect an officer's opinion. And we are a member-led council, not an officer-led council. Officers carry out the policies, but the policies are made by the members. And it is a point that's being taken up, and I'd like to speak to Councillor Blankley afterwards about it regarding Birchington. But I think, you know, it is, in this case, I'm very reluctant, and I would appreciate that the Chair is agreeing that we recommend that we do not support this.
Do you wish to speak, Councillor Wright?
Only in as much, Councillor Shunk, that both Barry Lewis and myself were given a briefing from David Brazier. He didn't like what we said, but anyway, we did have an opportunity.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement that her recommendation is that we don't want this to happen. So could we have recommendation, please? And 7, which is the Future High Streets Funds Ramsgate Highways Improvement Scheme. I call upon Mr Burton, Asset Development Manager of TDC, to introduce the report. Mr Burton.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read the attached documents that went out of your agenda. I'm just to outline a few key points, and obviously it's here for you to take view of the consultation that's recently taken place, and to comment on that as you may wish, and for us then to review those comments and progress to the next stages of the project, and then hopefully subsequently deliver the scheme on the ground. So as it was introduced, the funding's come from the Future High Street Fund. We've got in the region of 1.6 million to deliver a highway improvement scheme. In essence, that's to enable more connectivity between the harbour and the town side, so the south and the north side of Harbour Parade, and that's to enable the higher densities of people within the harbour area to try and migrate them into the town and ease crossing and the environment of that seafront road. So in terms of the consultation that has taken place, the scheme was originally concepted with Ramsgate Coastal Community Team and Ramsgate Town Council. The use of KCC was involved initially on the scheme before we then appointed highway engineers to develop the scheme a little bit more for the consultation. The work is under a 278 agreement, section 278. Because it hasn't gone through any planning process and doesn't need to, the idea is that we take it to the public to get that consultation feedback, and that consultation run from the 12th of October through to the 26th of November, and within that period we had 182 responses, which was really pleasing, to be honest with you, the number of participants that responded on that. And we had 2 drop-in sessions at the Customs House in Ramsgate, one in the afternoon and one in the evening, of which we had 46 attendees or thereabouts come and have a look at the scheme as it was delivered or proposed. And in that consultation session, we had members from KCC Highways there and our highway engineers there to comment on the schemes and answer questions as we could. So on this, I like to, as you see if you've looked at the agenda, in essence there's a positive view about the scheme in the public. 82% agree or strongly agree about the scheme. 75% think the objectives of the scheme will be met in delivering this. The key points in our submission here, we have included all the comments that were made through the consultation online, obviously, as well as through the visits, and there's quite a number of pages of them, as you've probably seen and gone through. I think the key elements or key messages, and it's always a little bit subjective on comments and trying to put them into some key points, but I think what we've generally picked up from the comments is that there's a lot of view in terms of pedestrianisation of Harbour Parade from Marina Walk over to the Pavilion Sands, the Wetherspoons. Also, there's a lot of comments in terms of the parking restrictions along that road. I'd like to say at that point, though, both those elements are outside of our scope of work. We've got quite a tight scope of what we're allowed to do for the funding, but they're outside of that. But the comments are still, extremely important to us, and I'll move further on that in a moment. One of the other key areas of concern or comment were positive, mostly positive actually, and a few in worried comments in regards to the 20-mile-an-hour zone. So most people like that extended out further than where we've currently proposed. So we have extended the scheme into the town from what was initially looked at prior to the consultation to try and help there. But in the main concern is the Madeira Walk, and that we extend the 20-mile-an-hour up in towards Wellington Crescent to slow traffic as it comes down the hill, and very point. Also potentially a number have asked it to just be extended generally within the Ramsgate area and then down and possibly up towards Addington Street, although that's a little bit more difficult in that respect. There have been concerns, just general concerns about the state of the High Street area as such, because this doesn't affect that as directly, but there were comments on that, and there were some comments in relation to the North bus lay-by that's being slightly reduced, because at the moment some of the buses do cause some congestion by sticking out, and we're just reducing that slightly to have I think a slightly less area for the bus, but we have to try and maintain the current regulations on what we're allowed to do in terms of distances from traffic lights, etc. But on the offset of that, quite a few people have also indicated that why isn't Leopold Street used more often rather than waiting necessarily at on the harbour itself, and that's a point that we can take back to Stagecoach as part of this comments and consultation. You'll see some key stakeholders, Ramsgate Town Council, generally positive with the proposal, would like some monitoring on it as well, which is fine, and which we have to do as part of the funding. So that's fantastic. The police, in essence, are again positive. The comment is under the general national policy stance on 20-mile-an-hour roads, that they don't police that 20-mile-an-hour zone. They don't anywhere, but in essence. That they see the use of the raised table should induce a reduced speed in there as well, which we're trying to achieve. Just going back on the comments and what I've picked up, quite a few of them are outside of our scope of what we can do. But having said that, this is only one funding stream within Ramsgate that's coming up. And I think, the use of this consultation has highlighted other areas of the town that can, would benefit from these general comments as well as site-specific comments, and in particular, Harbour Parade, where you've got the double parking outside the cafes and shops there, and also the narrow pathway that you have, a pedestrian pathway along that side as well. So these are good comments, not necessarily that we can pick up in this scheme, but need to be taken forward on the future height, the levelling up funding that's available, together with some comments about general signage as well, maybe reducing clutter and a bit more directional signage to help people find the car parks, etc. within the town more easily. Our next steps will be to look at the consultation, as I've said, look at the comments in relation to those key points, go back with our design team. In fact, we're meeting later this week with the design team to try and incorporate these, in particular, extended 20-mile-an-hour limit, what we can do there, have a think on maybe some of the crossing points, because there was a comment on Madeira Walk, there's a little bit up the road, and try and bring that down. So try and pick these up. So it was a positive experience for us, and I think that, what has come out of it has been some really positive questions and solutions or engagement that we look to take forward. The other thing we'd like to do is probably do another release, press release, or maybe directly to certain stakeholders, saying what we've taken on board in terms of the consultation, to give some feedback, because as you may know, lots of people may think the consultation is it's just a tick box exercise, but it actually isn't in this instance at all, and shouldn't be in any instance. So we will take on board these comments and sort of develop them out, really. So it's been brought to your board to really just advise and hope we're able to progress that forward onto the next stages. The scheme, as it's a 278 scheme, section 278, will have the detailed design developed out more. It will then go to, you probably all know, a stage 2 safety audit to ensure that what's being proposed in the detail is acceptable to the KCC and to the highways. And then it will go out for commencement on site. We're looking at autumn next year. So we want to commence and do the works outside the peak, obviously, season for the tourist trade. So it'll be through autumn through to spring. I think that concludes, unless Fiona has any comments that you need to bring. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right. Do members have any questions or comments? Councillor Tom.
Well, I'll respond to that because I do live in Ramsgate. There are concerns there. Obviously, it's going to be a bit of a balance what people want in Ramsgate. I've lived there all my life. When you turn right, what was the old NatWest Bank is an Italian restaurant today. You need a cul-de-sac sign there because everybody's going down to the pavilion with Wetherspoons to go nowhere. We used to have a highway that belongs to KCC in front of those new flats. Why can't that road be open so let the traffic flow? Because when you go down to what was the old marina, it's dead end. If we open that road up, which belonged to us anyway, not to the people that own the flats, that's our seafront. So when you turn right, what is now what was NatWest and then the pizza place and now it's an Italian restaurant, which is great news for Ramsgate. All that traffic comes down there and you've got a pinch point, as you quite rightly said, where the two coaches park and if they park around a corner. So that is a concern. If we could open that road up, which I've been, even KCC years ago, and sometimes I think I'm just talking to a brick wall, because we do live in Ramsgate. It's a wonderful seafront, but you can't get nowhere. So you've got all that traffic going down there to go where? Nowhere. Just round that roundabout and back up again. It really rubs our noses, isn't it? So there's some good things. I'm a town centre campaigner for all the Thanet towns because they have suffered with Westwood Cross, but that's suffering as well now. So I'm really interested how things are. Levelling up is great news. I will talk about Ramsgate. Ramsgate is a market town. We need our market back on a Friday, end of, to bring life back into that town. You need cleaner streets, you need policemen on the beat. And the amount of stuff that's walking out them shops daily just by theft, and they can't keep taking it on. But I'm more than interested if I can help you anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bingham.
I'll try not to repeat what Councillor Shonker said. As another old Ramsgate family, yeah, I did have a few questions actually. One is, what is the aim of this? Because if the aim is to connect with the town, we have plenty of visitors. I say we, but Ramsgate has plenty of visitors going to the harbour. They might venture up Harbour Street as well. But they take one look at what used to be called the marketplace, where all the four roads meet, and they don't go any further. And who can blame them? It's shabby, it's half empty, it doesn't look very appealing. And that's your major problem. The High Street, King Street, Queen Street, and Harbour Street were able to be full of shops, and they're not anymore. It has to be brought in, but it has to be brought in not sort of higgledy-piggledy, but actually it has to be a plan, not wait till everybody goes bankrupt in a shop and then it's left for about 10 years until somebody takes it and builds flats there or something. It has to be a planned reduction of the town centre to survive. Because I do think actually local shops will come back. The demise, I think, of the large shops is something will take years to resolve and maybe change back again. But I still think that no matter which way you look at it, Ramsgate has a big town centre which is too big for today's market. And that's got to be made smaller, but in a much more obvious way. So I think that's the problem you've got, is when you're attracting people up through Harbour Street, what are you attracting them to? And if it's just to walk vaguely up a few half-empty streets with half-empty shops, then they're not going to go very far. So yes, I agree with you. And I also agree with you on the access. I've never understood the rationale for allowing parking in front of all the little cafes that are opposite the harbour. Anyone else would say, you must be mad. I suggested it to Town Council years ago. Why didn't you just get rid of it? You don't park, if you want to sit on the pavement, anywhere in the world, you wouldn't dream of sitting on the pavement and looking at the side of a car. Or two cars in Ramsgate, because it's often double parked. You wouldn't dream of it. You sit there to look at the harbour, not to look at a car. So that would be the first thing I'd get rid of. I'm sorry, it might upset a couple of people, but, you know, there is a car park opposite. So, but I'd get rid of it because it's only a few parking spaces anyway. And the second thing is, instead of putting in that, well, they put that roundabout in, but I never understood why they closed off that road, because the one thing you do if you're in a car and you're looking at a place for the first time is you drive along the seafront and you have a look and then you decide where you're going to stop. And if there's a nice large car park at one end, fine, you know, but that's where you drive. And so I think the first thing they should do is make that open again. I never understood why it was closed off. To me, it seemed pointless. And the other thing is, with Military Road, same thing as Harbour Parade. Cars driving along the harbour wall, really? You know, they don't other places. They might do out of the main hours, but they don't do it all the time. But we've got cars, motorbikes, all sorts of things driving up there. Again, if you want to encourage restaurants and cafes, and they're all sitting right by the harbour, they do not want to see vehicles going past. There are a lot of good comments from a lot of people, in a lot of good comments, and they all seem to make this, that, you know, forget the ones that say, oh, wouldn't it be lovely to have 20 mile per hour? Who's going to enforce it? We've had 20 mile per hour in Broadstairs for years, in the High Street. And councillors, both Councillor Maeve and Councillor Dave Saunders know that on a Saturday night, you'll see somebody screaming down there at 60, and who's going to stop them? It happens all the time. So 20 miles per hour is a nice thing to have if you've got cameras up, which is what they do in London. It's enforced. There are cameras every 20, 30 yards. And I would campaign, and I have already campaigned in KCC, that they use more cameras and make them cheaper. So that, you know, it's not astronomical to put them in, but cameras you could have there. But Military Road, as I said, I think that you should be looking at somehow accessing it for the large vehicles, certainly, accessing it via the tunnel, and accessing along the road the other way. You can also park along Westcliff on the what used to be called the artificial beach, and but you can you know, there's plenty of parking along there. And that doesn't interfere with anyone. It doesn't interfere with the beaches or anything. And it's not too far to walk, and it's on the flat, which is the great advantage that Ramsgate has over Broadstairs. It's on the flat. So, you know, I think if you're going to look at the vehicles, you've got to look at managing them. And I'm not sure that Leopold Street's big enough to put that many in either. And plus, it's a pretty tatty looking place. It smells. You take the lifts at your peril, if they work, and half the time nothing else works anyway, so you're not paying. So, you know, sorry. There are plenty of things to spend your money on, and I'm a bit worried that we're missing the main thing, which is you've got to look at before you talk about bringing people up into the town, you've got to have a town that's worth coming to. And I'm by no means saying it isn't. Ramsgate's a good town, and that's where a lot of money should have gone in the last 20 years. Not in Margate, but in Ramsgate. Because Ramsgate has one big asset, and that's the harbour.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. I think Councillor Shonks would like to speak again.
I'll try and make this brief. I quite agree with what Councillor Binks does, because she probably understands Ramsgate just as much as I. One thing that we got the best harbour there is. It's a war harbour. And when I was on KCC before, I'm sure things that just fall on deaf ears. Every time that tunnel is closed, it's during the daytime. Now, we've asked for that tunnel to be repaired at night time. So those lorries don't have to go past all those cafes And because it is a working harbour, it's struggling, I know. But you've got Brett's and those lorries go along there and the people trying to serve drinks. But they still manage. But wouldn't it be great to, any work must be done at night time on that tunnel. So at least it's open. So all those heavy, I mean, God knows how much that tunnel, £80 million underneath them allotments when we had a ferry. Let's try and make use of it and try and make things pleasant for people that are trying to survive. And get back to that road along that Ramsgate seafront. Be wonderful because you've got 1,000 people a week going to those tunnels, wartime tunnels. And if they could come down there and there's nowhere to park outside Wetherspoons or the Turk or whatever it is, they'd probably go along there and say, well, we'll park up there and we'll use some of the facilities that are not used because it's a dead-end street. And they could go all along that seafront, turn left where the closed toilets have been closed for about 30 years and go back up the hill and park up along the top and go to the St. Cloud. The potential in Ramsgate is fantastic, which is never used.
Thank you. Any other members would like to make comments or questions? Right.
Can I just comment, just briefly,
Sir.
comment on a couple of those points? I do understand where you're both coming from in terms of the tunnel and Military Road. I say the harbour parade towards Wetherspoons, that was one of the key, you obviously read the comments, that was one of the key areas where everyone's saying about pedestrianise and lose the on-street parking. I can't comment about the in front of the new development, to be truthful. I don't know about the land ownership and what the elements that are there. That's not outside mine, but I will take these forward, these comments forward to the appropriate people, as you've mentioned, including the port in regards to the tunnel element as well. No problems there at all, to be honest with you. There is a high street, future high street fund for the other half of the funding, shall we say. So this is the highway fund. There is some elements for the town itself to try and engage with the empty shops and to bring that side of the town back into use. So I do understand where you're coming from. That's at the moment, I think there's some Harbour Street itself has got some activity, but the whole fund extends up towards where the old Argos was, or the NatWest Bank in the high street. So hopefully, it's similar to a THI scheme. And so hopefully, landlords or owner occupiers will, take that opportunity to try and get some improvement on their property as well. So there's two schemes. In fact, there's the Future High Street Fund, this one, the other side of this, about workspace, etc., and try and get used to it in properties. But there's also the High Street has, which is about improving the frontages as well. So it's more of a material, a built environment scheme. Which is like the THI, and that improves the frontages, which again hopefully encourages people to spend more money on the property and to maybe open up some of these properties that have been closed. I say that's just wanted to sort of reiterate that on those, and again that the Levelling Up Fund has got opportunities in other sites within the harbour. I believe one of them is Pier Yard, and so there's a bit of connectivity there. When that scheme is being looked at, to see what can be done to pick up these points that have been raised. And as I say before, I think it's the consultation was primarily for this scheme that I'm delivering in this area, but it's actually opened up and commented quite nicely on a number of peripheral areas that are really important to Ramsgate. So yeah, just thank you for your time there.
Thank you very much. With the recommendations are to use the information from the consultation, right, for the project to progress, can we recommend that the project progresses with and endorse the changes what members have brought up this evening? Obviously, Grant has said that he will look into these comments. So can we make the recommendation we will progress the product, but with endorse these changes? Is that fair? Yes, we agree. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you. And a seconder, please? Thank you. Okay. I think. Right, that's if members all agree. Thank you. Thank you. Well, that concludes the business for this evening. Thank you for your attendance. I'd like to wish you all a very, very happy and healthy Christmas and New Year. Thank you for attending, and thank you. On our way.